Today on Garbage Time Fantasy Football, we have NFC East preview, the best division. It's time for Garbage Time. Welcome into Garbage Time Fantasy Football. I am your host, Ron, the Fantasy Spectre Seymour. Joined by Joe McCann. How are you doing today, Joe?
Ron, you ready to talk about the team that's going to be picking number one overall next year?
What, the Jets? No, that's AFC East. We're doing NFC East.
No. We're talking specifically about the team that's going to be picking number one tonight, the Giants.
No. They will definitely not be picking one overall. Atlanta Falcons are still a team. So they're not. Houston Texans, these are teams that the Giants will do better than.
We'll see.
We're doing the NFC East preview, obviously. I'm a New York Giants fan. They get roasted for it a lot, even though out of all of our teams outside of the Patriots, outside of the Patriots, the Giants are the only other team that has won a Super Bowl in recent memory. So they can shut up about their Bears and Jets love. Right?
You're just jealous.
All right, if you're
jealous,
watching,
you don't have a competent quarterback.
If you are listening to us, hopefully you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Tunein Radio, Google Podcasts, Simplecast. And if you're listening to us, you should go over to YouTube, over to Garbage Time Fantasy Football, and like and subscribe over there and watch our very beautiful faces be ridiculous through this entire show.
We really like when you do that.
It's a lot of fun for us, come in. We almost always go live now. When we get into the season, there might be a few more pre-recorded due to, we all have jobs. But as of right now, most of our shows have gone up live, and you can comment and we will engage right along with you. We want to answer the questions. Joe especially.
Oh, always. I'm very, very active on our channels.
All right, Joe, you ready to get into the news?
Let's do it, Ron.
Am I drunk? I felt like I slurred that.
News updates.
All right, let's get some stuff out of the way first. Guys, you can join us tomorrow night for a mock draft where we're going to be joined by a very special guest. It's going to be Ryan from Jets Talk 24/7. He's got a very prominent and healthy YouTube channel where he talks about everything Jets. It's going to be very interesting to see him talking about the fantasy formats of the Jets and what he thinks about some other teams. So, Ron Seymour, what's your thoughts about him joining us tomorrow night? I think it's nice to bring someone else with some influence on this podcast and get some more fresh opinions, right?
Yeah, I'm excited. I love talking fantasy football. Sometimes it gets a little stale talking to you nerds all the time. Because we all already know each other's opinions on people. It's nice to have fresh people on to debate with and get more garbage time content, Also, I wasn't here the last time you had one of those guys on, so I'm not sure. Was it Ryan last time too, or?
No, it wasn't Ryan last time. It was fantasy football. It was Fantasy Football Dad.
Football Dad. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, I'm excited to have someone on. Which draft are we doing?
He hasn't decided yet. I've left that up to him. So tune in tomorrow night to find out if it's going to be random strategy draft or
I really hope it's random strategy. I really hope it's random strategy. That one's exciting to me. We also still got to figure out our tipsy draft.
Yeah, we'll get that towards the end of August, I think. That'll be a fun little week when we end up doing that. Yeah. Also, the return of Angry Christian, but not in voicemail audio format. Guys, if you want to leave voicemails or hate mails, you can do that at www.garbagetimeff.com. Christian did not have time to do that today, but he wanted to reach out to us on Twitter and had a question for both me and Ron tonight. So he has a fuck, kill, marry question for us, Ron. So are you ready for it? So he wants to know, but listen in. So Christian wants to know, Do we fuck, kill, and marry Tua, Daniel Jones, or Jared Goff in a fantasy format? No context, just that's what he wants to know. So, Ron, who are you killing? Who are you fucking? And who are you marrying?
You go first.
Well, out of these three, if I've got to hitch myself to one of them, unfortunately, it'll probably be my illustrious hate of Tua Tagovailoa, thanks to the nice weapons that he's got this year on the Dolphins. You know, he's got Tyreek. He's got a prominent second-year player on the other side with Waddle, too. So there's few possession weapons on that team. I guess if I had to fuck one, this is going to just sound very erotic. I guess I'm going to go with Goff just because of his past performances. He's one of the prominent quarterbacks that throw for over 500 yards on a game. And, I'm just going to throw Daniel Jones right in the trash and kill him off. He's not even going to be a quarterback after this year. I wouldn't even want him in dynasty format. So, Ron Seymour, who would you fuck, marry, and kill?
I think it's probably pretty similar. It would be Tua because he would change his last name to mine, and his last name would be easier to pronounce. Jared Goff because he probably looks the most feminine out of all three of them. And then, kill Daniel Jones.
Oh, that's just brutal. All right, now with that...
Bring the Giants Jimmy G.
Oh, God. You're going to go along with that rumor, huh? So you want to talk about that a little bit? I've got a bunch of news here, too, but obviously that seems to be on your mind. So what is the rumor going on with Jimmy G, especially for fantasy format?
I think it was probably just a throwaway. They probably looked into him. Why would you not? The dude has done nothing but win his entire career. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The regime that's there now did not draft Daniel Jones. They didn't pick up his fifth-year option. Why not kick the tires on Jimmy G, who's done nothing but win? And honestly, I think would probably increase at least the weapons around him stock when it comes to fantasy football. But
all right, that's fair enough, too. And we'll see what happens with Jimmy G in the upcoming weeks, too. First one, a little bit of news I wanted to talk about. First was when I was watching the Pat McAfee show yesterday, quite a funny scene ended up happening with Ian Rappaport, who was reporting on that J.K. Dobbins could potentially be very questionable for week one. It could actually end up on the PUP list, where J.K. Dobbins then smacked back at him on Twitter saying that if you need a source, go directly to him because he's expecting to play in week one and he thinks he will be ready for week one. So what do you make about this Twitter feed between these two, between Rap Sheet and J.K. Dobbins, Ron?
I don't know if I'd call it a feud, but as a J.K. Dobbins, it's a little bit of a spat. As a J.K. Dobbins owner in my, Dynasty League, I just traded the 104 for him, I believe. Really hurting at running back. I would love for him to be back week one. For him saying, come to me, listen, I was, 22, 23, 24, whatever he is right now at a time. And by no means necessary would I ever give out any inclination that I was any type of injured at any given point. I could literally show up with my full leg in a cast and say, no, I'm not injured.
To be fair, though, when you were 23 or 24 years old, they were using dial-up and there wasn't Twitter, though, so you didn't have that opportunity.
Listen, there was better than dial-up, but no, I don't believe Twitter was a thing at that point.
Yeah, so you couldn't clap back like J.K. Dobbins.
I wouldn't have been able to clap back. I would have had to done smoke signals. Listen here.
So what's your opinion on this? Do you think J.K. Dobbins is actually going to be ready for week one, or what's going on?
I think he'll probably miss a game or two. I mean, PUP is only 4 weeks now. You can do the 4-week PUP. Mm-hmm. Maybe J.K. Dobbins doesn't realize that. You know what I mean? But I think it's probably somewhere in between the two.
Okay.
You know what I mean? He probably won't be 100% ready for week one, but he might not get put on PUP.
Are you keeping a close eye on Gus Edwards and Mike Davis, then, on the wires?
I want nothing to do with Mike Davis. I understand he still could get work in this run-heavy offense, but
prominently on the wire, Gus Edwards probably will not be on the wire.
Right. Gus Edwards is good. Also coming back from a cleaner ACL than – but you also haven't been hearing much on Gus Edwards. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, which it's kind of been silent in the back of the Gus Edwards field.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. Yeah, so
And I think Mike Davis is going to be more of a pain in the ass for the J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards owners as opposed to actually fantasy development. He's going to be more of a thorn in the side getting that 3 or 4 passes a game because that's kind of his specialty. But he's not going to be a very good fantasy running back this year, I think. I think if you only see any value with him, it could be in week 1 and 2, potentially when they're easing J.K. Dobbins back into the offense coming off that injury. But I think the only ones with true value still are J.K. Dobbins currently and Gus Edwards. I would be very much more happy to have the relevancy of Gus Edwards because of the value there. J.K. Dobbins scares me a little bit, and currently he's sliding down draft boards where some people are looking at him now somewhere between rounds 4 and 6. So there's some interesting value there, and if you take a shot on him, you could get a league-winning upside running back.
It's definitely a risk-reward. I heard on another people, I think it was on the Fantasy Footballers talking about it, J.K. Dobbins is like the biggest. He's not going to finish at his ADP. Like, if he pretty much no matter where you draft him, he's either going to be way below it or way above it. Like, he will not return value at, like, where he was drafted. He's either going to get you better than ADP or worse than ADP. Like, he's not going to be one or the other. I will say this.
He's some championships, that's for sure.
I will say this. The Ravens did draft Tyler Beatty, crazy athletic running back. Drafted him real late, didn't get the draft capital, but had a really good college production and is extremely high on the athletic score charts.
Yeah.
Could be a Tyson Williams type where maybe he gets some work in the first couple games. Maybe the Ravens learned their lesson last year with putting out geriatric people out there instead of going with the explosiveness of Tyson Williams, but
no, that's the Bears now. We don't got to worry about that.
He's interesting to, like, look at Tyler Beatty.
Yeah, I don't think I'm that interested in him. All right, anyway, next little bit of news we have here, too, is about another running back. Lasagna Lenny, better known as Leonard Fournette, now weighs 260 pounds, according to reports. I don't think this is personally a big deal because he was overweight last offseason, too. And with him being overweight last offseason, he came on and helped many fantasy owners and was a good value. Coaches, yes, are pissed. But, Ron, are you worried about his usage this year based on the fact that Rachaad White was drafted and waiting in the dark? Or do you think he's still going to have that top 10 upside as I showed in the YouTube short today?
Yeah, he'll probably be fine. It's almost I heard someone joking about it where they were like, yeah, he got the contract and then Tom Brady retired, so he just said, screw it. I'm going to just fatten up. But I think he'll be fine. It almost reminds me, who is that old Packers running back? Do you know who I'm talking about? Like, he was super talented, had a great year, and then, like, showed up, like, 40 pounds overweight, had a horrible year, came back. I can't remember.
Lacy.
Eddie
Lacy.
That's who it is. Like, this is, like, that's all I could think of when this report came out, because Leonard Fournette, this is part of the reason he got, like, the Jaguars didn't want him anymore. His conditioning and everything, he would always show up out of shape and everything. So, like, this is not.
So we have, Buffet Lacy, Lasagna Lenny, big beefy running backs heading up the room.
There you go.
This way. If anything, this will just keep him on his feet. I really think Leonard Fournette's going to have a top 10 year, and I think he's going to be fantastic for fantasy owners this year. Tom Brady's going to want to pass to him. You got to look at the way he played last year, which he took the passing volume away from Giovanni Bernard and Ronald Jones, who is now at the Chiefs, and he showed that he had the talent there. I think Tom Brady's going to be more than happy to dump it off to him. And I think you're going to see a lot of good fantasy value for him. So I'm not really worried about these reports. I think this is just some slow summer offseason talks. And the Heckling fandom is joining in tonight and has some questions for us. Sua, a regular, wants to know who is the best team in the league. I said the Chargers. Ron, who's your opinion? Who's going to be the best team in the league this year?
God, it's hard not to pick the Chargers. They are a very good team. I definitely think they're Super Bowl contenders this year and probably for the next few years. They've done some solid moves. I really enjoy it. They're in a tough division, though. I mean, they are in probably the toughest division in football.
Those teams are going to murder each other this year. It's a new NFC West.
The Bills are a really good team. I think they could edge out the Chargers, but I don't believe early prediction from the AFC. It's hard not to put the Chargers right up there in at least the championship game.
And don't count on the Rams repeating either.
But unfortunately, Sua, the Chargers tend to charger a lot and just crumble in the playoffs. I know it's a different era now, and I'm hoping. I always like the Chargers, so I hope.
My early Super Bowl prediction is an LA Super Bowl. I'm going to say the Rams against the Chargers.
That'd be fun.
That would be a very fun Super Bowl.
Well, let's see. Hold on. The Super Bowl's in Arizona the last 2 years. It's been home field advantage. So, yeah, Arizona's probably going to the Super Bowl, right?
Doubtful.
Arizona Chargers?
Oh, God. All right, next little bit of news we have tonight is more. I would say more, but it's still no news on Deshaun Watson where the predictability is all over the place.
There's no news. Ron Seymour of Garbage Time Fantasy Football said he's going to be suspended from 1 to 17 games.
Breaking. You're hearing it.
Right now.
He's going to be suspended this year.
Between 1 and 17 games. That's prediction time. I mean, if other people can say 2 to 17, like, why can't I say 1 to 17, you know?
Seriously, a retired judge is looking at this. What the fuck is going on? Just make a decision on it, okay? If there was something equatable to an offense, suspend him for what you think you're going to suspend him to something comparable to the league. But if there was no issues with it and there's no evidence on it, why is the NFL jumping out in front of cases that haven't even gone to court or were settled behind the scenes and making a suspension on it? It's time to make a decision on what you're going to do because everyone, including the Browns, all the fans, the teams, and if there is victims, they're all sick of it too. So it's time to make a decision and move on from it. Let's get our wheels under Deshaun Watson and figure out what we're going to do because fantasy owners are getting pissed too. But that is the least important of all of this story, but it's still very fantasy relevant because we need to know where we need to draft Deshaun Watson this year. So we are freaking tired of it. Make a decision. Do it this week.
If it's anything over 4 games, you don't draft him.
No, except maybe in best ball if you can get him a little bit later. Dynasty, yes, because the Browns are going to stick behind him. They obviously aren't going to pay him $238 million if they're not sticking behind him. But, in redraft, the same thing in more than 4 games, it really just doesn't make any sense to you unless it's a late-round flyer.
Yeah, you're taking up almost a quarter of your season.
Sua has got another comment for us. He says, because I know this sounds weird, but I made a worst-case scenario. So if I get the 7th pick of the first round and I get Saquon Barkley, if he's available, then right after that, I'll pick Cooper Kupp. Unfortunately, Sua, if you have Saquon Barkley with the 7th pick, you're probably not getting Cooper Kupp in the 2nd round because he may go in the top 5 of your draft. So that maybe if he'd be more likely Cooper Kupp at 7 and Saquon would probably come back. Yeah, that's probably a better strategy.
Unless he's in a 7-man team or a 7-team league, like maybe then.
Yeah, and you got to remember the format. Is it Dynasty D? Is it redraft? There's a lot of factors into that. And if you're drafting Cooper Kupp in the 1st round in Dynasty, that's not necessarily the best thing unless you're going to win now because you want younger players. And Saquon's coming off an injury. I wouldn't suggest drafting him early in the 1st round either. But, yeah, redraft's coming up. There's a lot of strategies. And funny enough, we may be getting into that tomorrow. Next little bit of news I've got for you, Ron, is the inactivity of Breece Hall playing today, but it was a very short holdout. He ended up signing very quickly. It seems like our GM's got the things together and knows how to hold down the force. So what's your thoughts on Breece Hall in the upcoming season? Obviously, there's nothing to this holdout anymore, and he's ready to go for training camp.
Well, if you go back and listen to Joe's early bold takes, you already know where me and you stand differently. I think Breece Hall will do just fine this year.
So bitch going to be a bell cow.
Yeah, but he's not going to lead the league in, all-purpose touchdowns or whatever Joe said.
That was a bold take. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. That was a bold take episode.
You're a bold take. No, I think Breece Hall will be just fine this year. I think Michael Carter will spell him. Probably be around somewhere, Breece Hall will probably get about 63-ish% of the work. I don't think they'll phase Michael Carter out that much. So I think it'll be
number. People like to go in 0s and 5. Ron Seymour.
Oh, sorry. So like 60. So I'll say 60-40 because I think 60-40 is a little bit too. I think that'll be a little bit too low when it's all said and done. Like I think you'll have weeks where you see Michael Carter get more work than other weeks. Not more than Breece Hall, but go ahead.
Yeah, so I think what you're going to see is similar to kind of what you said there, but it's going to be early, where it's going to be a split backfield early in the season with Michael Carter and Hinn. But then you're going to get that Jonathan Taylor-esque kind of year where he's just going to break out in the second half of the year and just be on an absolute tear. My bold take is that he's going to get off and just take off in this league right from the get-go. But my realistic take is that he's going to start off with about a 50-50 split, and then he becomes the bell cow, maybe a little bit less than halfway before the season starts. So that's my prediction on Breece Hall. I'm very excited to see him. I'd be very excited to have him for fantasy football, even in his rookie year. I think he's going to be a good piece for a lot of offenses. Last little bit of news I have before we get into the NFC breakdown, too, is Mark Hollins is predicting that – actually, Mark Hollins is one of the players in the Raiders' depth chart, is not favored over Keelan Cole to start opposite Devontae Adams with Hunter Renfrow in the slot. Do you think there's any value to the second wide receiver on the Raiders?
No, not really. I think Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow are the 2 and 3, I think. But the problem is they both play the same position, really. I mean, they're both the middle of the field. Like, I know one's wide receiver, one's tight end, but they're both middle of the field guys. And you saw the differences when they were both playing. I don't want anything to do with anyone not named Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, or Darren Waller.
Exactly. I understand what you're saying with that. And guys, if you have any comments, just like Sua, feel free to leave them in the comments. I see we have a few viewers tonight, so we'd love to get your comments inside. We will always answer them on the show. If you feel a little bit shy and want to ask us questions on our Instagram, you can do that at Garbage Time Fantasy Football in the messages. You can also do that on Twitter at garbage_time_FF. I think without further ado, Ron, are you ready to get into the divisional breakdown and see the thrusting guy just one last time?
Sure.
Except for next week. All right, we are going to list the NFC East tonight, and we are going to go with the team picking number 1 overall this season, and with home field advantage tonight, Ron Seymour's favorite team, the New York Giants. How does that sound, Ron?
Let's do it.
So the Giants, from a fantasy football perspective, don't have a lot of relevancy except for at the running back position, but I'll try to find some stuff here. I'm just kidding. There's a little bit more than that. First, I'm going to ask you about the wide receiver position. So I want to know who's going to be fantasy reliable at the wide receiver position for the Giants this year. Is it going to be Kadarius Toney or Kenny Galladay? Or can we get something out of both of them?
This has probably got to be one of the hardest wide receiver rooms to try to figure out who's it's going to be for fantasy football. The money points to Kenny Galladay, right? Came in last year, big contract, really good wide receiver. You know what I mean? Has really good routes, is actually a really good wide receiver. Came into last season injured. Then Daniel Jones got injured. Maybe one full good offseason will get them both together and they'll click. But damn, Kadarius Toney is the athlete on this team. He's got that quick. Go ahead.
No, I'm going to let you finish your quandary. And then
he's got the quick twitch ability like Tyreek Hill. Doesn't have quite the speed, but you've seen it last year. He gets the ball in his hand. He's just electric.
Let me just say this about these two players. Kadarius Toney has that wow factor where he can take over a game. We saw that. The problem with him is he's a little bit of a dynamite, similar to T.O.'s personality back in the day. But if he gets on the field and he stays on the field, I think he's going to be absolutely electric for the Giants. Well, on the other hand, Kenny Galladay had 5 offensive linemen score more touchdowns than he did last offseason. That is bad and scary. I don't know if that's because Daniel Jones is throwing him the ball, if he was injured last offseason. It just was a weird year for Kenny Galladay all around. So at current ADPs and at the wow factor of someone that can actually help your team out, potentially be a wide receiver 1, even being drafted very late in fantasy drafts this year, I would much rather have Kadarius Toney over Kenny Galladay.
I mean, I'd almost rather take a shot on Wan'Dale Robinson over Kenny Golladay too. You know what I mean? Kenny Golladay seems like one of those people that could end up being traded by the deadline if he's not doing anything and the Giants have to eat half his contract or something like that.
I don't think anyone would actually want to take on that contract. I think you guys are pretty much stuck with him. So you better hope that he ends up performing and that contract actually lives up to its expectation, because it sure didn't its first year.
No.
You already talked about Wan'Dale Robinson, so let's get into him next. Do you believe there's any dynasty value with Wan'Dale Robinson? Someone I was kind of busting on you about in the draft with other wide receivers who I thought had more value, or Sterling Shepard going into this offseason?
Wan'Dale Robinson, yeah, there's definitely dynasty value. He's, drafted in the second round. He's got the draft capital that you like to see. And, I mean, he was a very talented wide receiver in college. I look at it like if Wan'Dale Robinson went to the Kansas City Chiefs, everyone would be all about it. You know what I mean? Like, people would want Wan'Dale Robinson. But because he went to the Giants, people are not high on him at all. So I think there is value. Right. I definitely think there is value in Wan'Dale, but it's going to be he's probably not going to do much for you this year, if anything.
And Sterling Shepard is right off the radar?
Yeah, the man, good wide receiver. He really is. But he can't stay healthy for anything.
Okay.
And I think Darius Slayton is just gone now, pretty much.
All right, and what's your opinion on Daniel Bellinger as the starting tight end for the Giants this year? Do you think it's a clear-cut starter there?
They really – didn't they bring in another tight end? I can't remember who it was.
It's your team and your roster. You tell me. That's just
I'm not worried about the tight end position. Bellinger, could be a good late round / waiver wire dynasty ad to see what he turns into. But
strictly dynasty, not redraft, though. Yeah,
I wouldn't take a chance on him on redraft. Even if he comes out and performs week 1, it still doesn't mean anything. He could, it could just be game plan. It could be anything. You just got to see. It's not worth it. Not at tight end.
Oh, okay, and what is your personal opinion on the quarterback you killed earlier on this episode instead of marrying your man? Daniel Jones in redraft and dynasty formats.
Superflex, I'm perfectly okay with him as a QB2. He offers that rushing upside. He can get you, over the course of a year, 300-400 yards rushing. He definitely has that rushing upside. And, if he could get his fumbling under control, that'd be great. We've beefed up that offensive line this year. We brought in, the quarterback the offensive coordinator that transformed Josh Allen. If he can perform even 15% more than he did with Joe Judge, then there's zero reason he won't finish as at least a QB2 on the year. Matt
Ryan, Jared Goff, anyone over Daniel Jones. They're just he's awful. I don't even want him as a quarterback in Superflex.
See, that's the thing. He's not even that bad.
I'll take Carson Wentz over him.
That's
awful.
He is not that bad. You are.
He's that bad.
I understand he's not great, but you have a really low opinion on him.
It's not as low as my opinion of Sam Darnold, but it's pretty low. I have no expectations of Daniel Jones this year, and you're going to be either getting a quarterback at the draft deadline if somehow you're competing a little bit, maybe that Jimmy G kind of player, or you're going to be drafting his replacement next year. There's no doubt. No,
I completely agree with those statements. For you to say you wouldn't even want him as a QB2, even though you've personally said that we've upgraded at coach and GM and everything. Plus, they've done all the right stuff and our line. For all that, and then you said he's not even going to be a QB2, just seems But you've also said that we're not going to win like 2 games, even though we won 4 with Joe Judge and what's his name? Jake Fromm starting some of the season. So, like you say, you like these people, and then just don't give any bump to anybody. So, Daniel
I do
Jones,
like the people. I just think you're going to endure some pain this year.
So,
that's
so
all.
here's my thing with Daniel Jones. I was killing time while I looked this up. You said he's not even going to be a QB2, even though he played 9, 10, 11 games last year. And there was only 3 where he didn't finish as a QB2. And one of those was the game he got injured in. And then he had 2 top 10 finishes, one of them being top 5. So, I mean.
So you don't think regression is a possibility in a brand new system, especially when you're going to also just be pounding the rock with Saquon Barkley, someone who you got to figure out if you're going to be giving
First off,
this year?
That's not going to happen. They're not going to run the ball. I can't think of our coach's name offhand for some reason. Brian Dable. Brian Dable likes to pass the ball. And we upgraded the offensive line. He's got the weapons. The weapons he has should be good. You know what I mean?
And Jimmy G's firm hands after week 8.
And if Brian Dable is the coach that everyone thinks he is, and the offensive line plays up to where it should play, there's zero reason why he shouldn't at least put up the same type of games he put up last year with a fully healthy Saquon. Like, you're not wanting him even as a QB2 is wildly ridiculous.
It's so fun to just make you angry talking about your team.
I'm not angry. I just think it's very misguided, and like you're giving bad advice to the heckling fandom.
You're giving bad advice to say draft Daniel Jones as your QB2. There's players with much more upside who I'd rather have as a QB2. But anyway, let's talk about a transition and get off this topic.
Carson Wentz. Wait a minute. Carson Wentz has more upside?
No, that was me busting your balls saying I'd rather have Carson Wentz as opposed to it. No,
Matt Ryan has more upside?
Yes, he does. I think it's going to be a nice, smooth offense this year. And
that's going to revolve around Jonathan Taylor.
That's okay.
Yeah, no.
Matt Ryan doesn't fumble the ball like Daniel
How about this? You ready for a bet? Apology bet time?
How many have I already done? Why do I got to do another one?
Because you're the only one on right now. How am I supposed to do it with someone else?
If you agree to look up all the apology bets that we actually have,
oh God, no. Oh God, no. I will not do that. I don't think me and you have any right now, do we?
Yeah, we do. The Chicago Bears-Giants one is one.
Oh, yeah. I thought I did that with JJ.
No, I took the place, remember? Because he wouldn't take the bet.
Oh, I think that's the only one me and you have.
Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, no. Someone
anyway,
really. Whoever's listening, please go back and listen to all the episodes, like and subscribe to them. And you can't subscribe to a video, but whatever, you know what I mean. My bet was both players play every single game. Daniel Jones finishes higher than Matt Ryan, fantasy-wise.
I'll take that bet.
All right. I don't have any.
That's okay. Yeah, no, we'll just mark this. Anyway, let's get into our next
question. JJ, mark it.
Yeah, if you're watching this right now, JJ, make sure to mark it.
Mark it, JJ.
All right, let's go into our transition question between teams here, too. And this is your last Giants/Cowboys question. So who will finish as the higher scoring running back between the two, Zeke Elliott or Saquon Barkley, and why?
That's a good question. That's a hard one. I really like both of these players this year, actually, and both, people are kind of down on both of them. These are two players where if you're picking at the turn, you very well could get these two players. I think both of them are ADP second, third round-ish. I'm going to give the edge to Saquon just because of the receiving. Tony Pollard takes a little bit more than that, and the Giants really don't have anybody else behind Zeke. So I think I'll give the slight edge to Saquon. But if these guys finish 4 and 5, 5 and 6, one right before the other, it wouldn't shock me at all.
I think both of these running backs are going to be in for very productive years and surprising people. Saquon's coming off the second year of his major injury and started to show a little bit more spice towards the end of the season, I think.
Until he stepped on something.
That's true. But I think he's going to be fine this upcoming season. They've improved the offensive line. Dable likes to run the ball. I think they're going to have short dump-off passes because Daniel Jones is inept and is just going to lose the pattern of all the wide receivers and just dump off to him anyway. On top of that, you need to figure out if you're actually going to give him that contract or not. You seem to think they won't, but regardless, they're going to run him into the ground this upcoming season. So I like his fantasy production for this upcoming season. I like his dynasty production. He could be good somewhere else too. And you seem to have a thought. Go ahead before I get on Elliott.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention they're switching to the zone run scheme, which is what he ran in college and his first year with the Giants and when he was super productive. So I think that'll really help also.
Yeah, and getting into Zeke too, I think people are underestimating the amount of passing work that he's going to get this offseason. So Gallup is coming off an injury. Amari Cooper is now gone, and there is a little bit of volume at the tight end that has to progress somewhere else too. Zeke is the kind of player that can work the middle of the field. They also have another running back behind him that can work the middle of the field. So I think they're going to try to get the value out of that contract too, using both of these guys. There's a lot more volume in this offense to go around here. And it's got to be made up somewhere. It's going to be done with CeeDee Lamb on the outside, but I think they're going to look to use the running back role a lot more this upcoming season in the passing game. And I think that could really help out Zeke. They'll keep him fresh and have a nice committee here.
Yeah.
What's your finishing thoughts on Zeke before we move on to other players on the Cowboys?
Oh, yeah, just pretty much the same thing. I think people are underestimating a little bit. Before his injury that wasn't disclosed last year, it didn't really come out until the end of the year. He was running back like 4 through those weeks. And then he, had the injury, started really slowing down, still very productive, still finishes the running back, I believe, 6 or 8. So I think he's going to be a lot better than people give him credit for.
Fair enough. So next question I got for you is Dak Prescott being heavily undervalued this year in fantasy formats, especially at the quarterback position? Like, is he someone that you can draft a little bit later if you faded the quarterback position just a bit? Like, so if you drafted heavily at the wide receiver and running back positions, or that prominent tight end you wanted at the top, can you fade other players and potentially get Dak Prescott and get that maybe top 6-7 upside? I mean, he had a very high productive offense last year. So what's your thoughts on it?
I think Dak could very well finish as the quarterback 1. He's very talented. I think his weapons took a real big hit this year. They got rid of Amari Cooper, and Michael Gallup is not very injured, but injury might not be ready for the start of the season. So they're going to be what reports indicate he's going to be relying on Jalen Tolbert. But with his ADP right now, with how far he's dropped in ADP, yeah, he's a good value where he's going right now, because he definitely could finish top 3, even top 1 as QB. He has that potential.
Okay, and next estimation I have for you is, does CeeDee Lamb have top 5 wide receiver potential in the upcoming season?
Yeah, I've been rising on CeeDee Lamb just because it's most likely going to be a lot of CeeDee Lamb. He could very well be close to that, that 25, 26, 20, really pushing those target percentages that, you always see like Devontae Adams get with Aaron Rodgers, where he was like 27% of the targets. You know what I mean? CeeDee Lamb could be there. He could have a huge breakout this year just because they don't have any other wide receivers really, especially at the start of the season.
Man, he is just so interesting because
the
mass amount of volume he could get just from Amari Cooper not being there. it could be dangerous for people that go up against him on a weekly basis, especially with those teams that have bad secondaries. He just kind of feels like he's ready for that breakout. Someone else on this show made the prediction of him potentially having the upside of being a number 1 overall wide receiver. I don't think he goes nearly that high. I like a few other guys that are ranked lower in Madden, but not in fantasy football than him. Madden,
this isn't a Madden. Let's not get in there.
That is absolutely bullshit what you did to those Bengals wide receivers. And I hope that reflects in how many games you sell. Update the rosters accordingly. Anyway, CeeDee Lamb does have nice upside, and it is high wide receiver 1 upside. So draft accordingly.
Yeah, he definitely has the ability and the opportunity to finish as the wide receiver 1. I wouldn't put him there, but top 5 is almost a lock, I would say.
All right, let's move on to another player then. I want to talk about Dalton Schultz. So is Dalton Schultz the last tight end in the upper tier of the entire tight end position for fantasy football?
Yeah, I think if it gets to a point where I don't have a tight end yet and Dalton Schultz goes, that is my indication of I'm now going to punt the entire tight end position and worry about just streaming and getting someone I really like at the end of the draft. Like, I don't know, like a David Njoku or something. Someone I feel like could have upside with a new team and everything. Mo Alley Cox. I'm really rising on Mo Alley Cox too.
Really? That's interesting. I don't know what to think about Mo Alley Cox. So my thoughts on Dalton Schultz is a very similar sentiment that I had to CeeDee Lamb, which is there's going to be a lot of volume in this offense. JJ very profusely brought up that the Cowboys, or maybe I don't remember if it was JJ or Ryan. It doesn't matter. They're
not
the most. Not tonight. They're not. They were the most efficient offense last year, and that kind of went under the radar here. Some of the weapons are gone, and there's some new interesting ones coming into that. But with that comes adverse amounts of volume in this offense, which I think is going to be pass heavy. So Dalton Schultz, I think, will get a lot of work and will be in the upper tier of the tight end position, which could look very nice this upcoming season. It's not going to be that previous fade of years where you didn't get the top 3 guys. You just completely faded the position. There could be 5, 6, 7 very good tight ends. And then after that, as Dynasty Football Dad said, it's the twilight zone of tight ends. And then you just pick which one you like at the end of the draft. So just take that into account. If you want a prominent one, this is about your line. I think that's where Dalton Schultz falls. So next question I got for you. Is Michael Gallup a fade due to his injury? And with that question, does Jalen Tolbert have good redraft and dynasty value? Should he not start the season?
I try not to buy into the injury dip when it comes to players. Generally, after an injury, people are not the same as they were right away, even when they first come back. So, yes, I do. I think Jalen Tolbert could have the opportunity. He's probably going to be the number 2 wide receiver, at least at the start of the season, and for as long as Michael Gallup misses time. And not to mention, Michael Gallup has missed time every year he's played. So Tolbert could be a really good wide receiver for a lot of the year. He could end up being, because of landing places and all that, he could end up being the best rookie wide receiver this year to come out of this class. Like, not saying long term, because, these other guys will be better, but like all these other guys kind of went to spots where, they might not have all the opportunity. They don't have the quarterback. They're not going to be playing the full season in Jameson Williams' case. Like, there's definitely more talented wide receivers, but Jalen Tolbert should get the opportunity week 1 to be a big part in a very good passing offense.
And that's what the beat reporters are saying, but we know how often beat reporters are correct. So
well, these aren't the
San Francisco. About that yet.
These aren't the San Francisco beat reporters,
True. That's a very valid point, Ron. All right, last question I got for you on the Dallas Cowboys is, can Tony Pollard finish above his current ADP of the 6th round and 8th pick as a running back 2?
I mean, he can. I mean, if Zeke goes down, I think he'll be a very solid running back 2 by the end of the year. He'll probably finish in that, 14 to 16 range, most likely. He's going to get some passing work. He gets some work. If Zeke misses any games, which isn't normal, but, he's getting a little bit older. If Zeke misses some games, that's going to boost him up for those weeks. I mean, his range of outcomes is anywhere from low-end RB2 to top 5 running back on the year, all depending on situation of what happens.
I don't think top 5 is in his versatility of outlooks, just based on his usage. He's more, I think, more of that scat bag. I don't think he can really be that bell cow. I think they would bring in someone more of a committee role. I think his ceiling would be more of, oh God, I don't even want to see Miles Sanders, but that's kind of the style I think he would kind of play. He may be more talented than Miles Sanders, to be honest.
I think if Zeke goes down in the first 2 weeks and Tony Pollard has the reins, even in a timeshare, I still think he'd have the first. I think he'd be the leader of the timeshare. He's shown that
definitely
he can
a top 2 or 3
tackles.
handcuff, I think, though.
Oh yeah,
Easily. All right. Let's move on to the shittily named brown turd Washington Commanders. Burgundy turd Washington Commanders. First question I've got for you, someone I brought up as a joke earlier, is Carson Wentz a straight fade for fantasy football this offseason?
Is he trade bait? Is that what you said?
No, I said is he full fade for fantasy football this offseason?
Yeah, definitely full fade. Yeah.
Now, with that, let's get into some more interesting questions. We're done with that. Can Terry McLaurin, even with Carson Wentz as his quarterback, be a wide receiver 1 simply based on volume and there not being a lot of weapons there in the Washington Commanders offense?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Michael Pittman was electric, especially in the first half of last year, and then they decided to lean more on the run with Jonathan Taylor. The Commanders don't have Jonathan Taylor. You know what I mean? They can't run the ball like the Colts did. They don't have the same offensive line. They don't have Jonathan Taylor. So they're going to have to pass the ball a little bit more. I think Terry McLaurin is probably a better wide receiver than Michael Pittman.
No, I wouldn't go that far.
He's very talented. And he's always put up
I'm not saying that. I just don't think he's nearly as talented.
He's put up good numbers with Tyler Heineke and, whatever hodgepodge of quarterbacks that he's had playing through his couple of years that he's singing. So he is definitely talented enough. He should finish as probably a wide receiver 1. Pretty close to it, 15 and up, at least top 15, I would think.
I stick him really in the tier of mid wide receiver 2. He's kind of vanilla for me. He's, don't get me wrong, he's talented. And talented enough to have a high ceiling in this league. But the problem is they've upgraded to Carson Wentz, who isn't much of an upgrade.
But he supports a number 1 wide receiver.
And he did that with Pittman. So it's an interesting question, but the Colts team felt more talented than the Commanders. So I see his ceiling in what you're talking about. My gut tells me he just disappoints where his current ADP is going, and he is more of that wide receiver 2 in a mid-range. Do you have any stats to refute what I'm saying?
Well, I'm looking at it right now. Pittman, week 1 last year, Pittman finished as the wide receiver 15 overall last year. Mm-hmm. Averaged 11.4 points per game. And if you look from week 11 on, he had 4 really bad games, where he only had 3 in the 10 games before that. Everything else was pretty much top 15. Those weeks where he started really having really bad games is when they decided, look, we don't want Carson Wentz to throw the ball anymore. So give the ball to Jonathan Taylor every down. Like I said, you're not going to be able to do that. So he should have. Plus, if the Commanders' defense played like it did last year, I know their defense should have been better. So if they're starting to get behind more than the Colts were, they're going to have to throw the ball more. I think because of the volume that the Commanders are going to have to pass, and, Terry McLaurin, even if you say Terry McLaurin and Michael Pittman 1-1, same skill level, everything, you know what I mean? There's going to be a more increase in passing attempts and, passing volume and everything for Terry McLaurin. So Pittman finished at 15 last year. Don't see why Terry McLaurin shouldn't at least get 15 this year, even if it comes a little bit uglier, like a little, maybe with more consistency, but less like spike games that Pittman had. You know what I mean?
Are you saying a garbage time king?
Yeah, possibly.
Would you rather have Scary Terry or DK Metcalf this year?
Scary Terry. 100%.
Right. Next question I got for you. Let's talk about the running back position in a very interesting spot. So, is Antonio Gibson being overdrafted, and is he going to cede carries to Brian Robinson? It kind of seems like Ron Rivera was hinting to this in his reports. And where does J.D. McKissick fit into this backfield?
Well, J.D. McKissick is safe. His job is what it is. He is the third down pass catching person. You know what I mean? Like, that's his job. Gibson is interesting to me because that man, he finished as the running back 10 last year. Like, in all cases, you should be like, all right, that man should go within the first 2 rounds automatically. He finished running back 10 on the Commanders team that really didn't score a lot of points. So you would think he should automatically. They bring in Brian Robinson and people start getting scared because of his fumbling. Brian Robinson is known for not fumbling. Regime change. Brian Robinson is a big body back, could steal goal line. Like, the back half of the year, last year, weeks 10 through 18, he only had 3 games where he was outside the top 20. I mean, he had 2 games where he was running back 5, 2 games where he was running back 6. It was just wild. So it's kind of hard to say what's going to happen.
I see him as a complete fade. Honestly, I am not touching Antonio Gibson. I never wanted to draft him, and that's going to continue this year. He's just off my draft board. I will not touch him in any formats. Brian Robinson, I really don't know what to think of him either. I just don't like this backfield. I would put them in the category of, the Miami Dolphins backfield, which I'm actually kind of rising to one of the players in that backfield now. A little bit more than that. I like the Dolphins backfield better than this backfield. I just see this as a complete fade with all of these. Brian Robinson has nice dynasty outlooks. Gibson, I think, is being drastically overvalued, and J.D. McKissick just doesn't really give you that nice punch that you like to see at the end of the draft when you're looking to get players with nice ceiling. His ceiling just kind of seems quite low, so I would just fade the entire position altogether.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, if you have to take a shot, if for some reason Gibson starts falling in your draft, yeah, I mean, there's a spot where you're going to take it. He still could be a starting running back for a team, and that's hard to find. So if he starts dropping 5th, 6th round, yeah, I'll take it because it's a potential running back for a starting running back for a team.
Last question I got for you for the Burgundy shithole of a team, the Washington Commanders. Do we have any interest in Logan Thomas or Jahan Dotson in any formats this year?
Jahan Dotson in Dynasty, obviously. You have to take him probably second roundish. I mean, he was a first round wide receiver.
He's a speedy animal.
They want him. Yeah, he's a speedy animal. I don't think Carson Wentz did help Deshaun Watson have a few, when in his older days.
And that's about the one thing Carson Wentz does well is throw that ball really deep. I mean, he may throw it into the stands, but Jahan Dotson may be able to get it in the stands.
You could take it won't count for anything, but he'll catch it. No, I mean, Jahan Dotson for Dynasty is definitely, I don't know if I would take best ball. I would take a shot on him late in your draft just because he can have those days or those games where he gets an 80-yard bomb for a touchdown. Like that could happen. Then you want that on your team in best ball, but I don't think you're going to know when to start him in your redraft weekly fantasy football.
And Logan Thomas is a complete fade. You're not falling for that trap again?
No, I'll wait and see what he does and then maybe pick him up off the waiver wire if he looks like he's going to be involved.
All right, now let's talk about your favorite team, the Philadelphia Eagles.
The Philadelphia Eagles.
All right. Is Jalen Hurts going to elevate his game with A.J. Brown coming to the team this year to the extent in which Kyler Murray plays?
No, not to that extent. Kyler Murray is a much better passer than Jalen Hurts.
Give us this breakdown. What's his ceiling?
Jalen Hurts, he's got all that rushing upside. His ceiling is definitely top 10. He could probably finish. I don't think I'd give him quite top 5. I think anywhere between that 5 and 10, I'd be comfortable saying yes. Just because he could go 800, 900 yards rushing. You know what I mean? You get A.J. Brown, you get him the ball in his hand short, and he could break it for 80 yards. Like that still helps. That still helps Jalen Hurts. You know what I mean? I think his passing numbers go up a little bit, and they better because if he doesn't show out this year and this team isn't phenomenal pretty much and definitely in the playoffs, he probably won't have a job next year. They've done everything to give him the team around him. He has A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. He has the weapons. Miles Sanders out of the back room. They have a great offensive line and a pretty good defense. There's zero reason they shouldn't win.
If he could just improve his passing game just a little bit, he has that fringe top 5 upside just on the rushing ability. He's like having an extra flex running back on your team. So he's nice in that kind of format. But the problem is will he and what kind of offense are the Eagles going to roll out next year? They just seem so easily foldable where, the running game's not working anymore. We're just going to go to pass happiness or vice versa. It's really confusing what the Eagles are going to look to establish as their identity last offseason because they were so moldable when things weren't working. And it just gets you flustered as to what this is going to do for fantasy football. So that's interesting.
I think you're going to see a lot of what you saw last year. Last year, in the beginning of the year, they wanted to pass the ball. They obviously still want to do that because did they go out and, really bolster up this offensive line, really go for this defense? No, they went out and they traded for and paid A.J. Brown. That's what they did. They spent the money. They spent draft capital because they traded a first-round pick. They want to pass the ball. I don't know if Jalen Hurts is going to be able to pass the ball like they want. So you might see them go trying to do it the first couple games, maybe going 2-2, and realizing if we just ran the ball a little bit more, we could be 3-1, 4-0. You know what I mean? So I think you see something along those lines. But the upside for Jalen Hurts is Lamar's MVP season. That's the upside. His passing may not be the best, but it's efficiency. A.J. Brown, just is a monster that he is. And he's throwing for a high efficiency touchdown rate. where you're seeing like a 9% touchdown rate where most of the league is at like 4 or 5. You know what I mean? Like exactly what Lamar did in his second year there when he won MVP. Didn't throw for a lot of yards, but he had a stupid amount of touchdowns. That's Jalen Hurts upside.
So many questions with Jalen Hurts. So it's if so.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah.
If everything goes right, MVP level.
I wouldn't go too many ifs for that. But all right, let's move on to the next question I've got for you.
Yep.
Can Devontae Smith outperform newly acquired A.J. Brown in fantasy production? He broke the Eagles' rookie passing records by a mile. So what's your thoughts on this? Is he talented enough to do that, or is this going to be A.J. Brown's show?
No, he's definitely talented, and I think it hurts both of their fantasy values because the passing pie is already going to be lower because of the offense they're going to end up having to run. And Jalen Hurts is going to take off running. That takes off passing volume. I mean, Devontae Smith, if Jamar Chase and Jalen Waddle didn't have the years they had, Devontae Smith put up 900 yards and something like 4 or 5 touchdowns. It's
impressive for a rookie.
That is a great rookie wide receiver season. Like, not even just a good – that is great. But you have Jamar Chase doing what he did. Jalen Waddle broke the reception record for a rookie. Like, he was just overshadowed. He's definitely talented enough. He could finish higher fantasy than A.J. Brown. Easy.
But like you said, A.J. Brown coming to this team, if anything, doesn't elevate either one of their fantasy values. It lowers both of their fantasy values just a little bit.
Right.
You're not going to see one, I don't think, really overtake the other heavily.
They probably will both finish, as wide receiver 2s, wide receiver 3. You know what I mean? One might just get into the wide receiver 2. It wouldn't shock me if they're in the 18 to 24 range. Both of them.
All right. Next question I got for you. Can Miles Sanders return to running back 1 status, or is he doomed to be in a committee with Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott?
If you look at the back half of last year, Miles Sanders was playing great, averaging 5 yards a carry. The man just wasn't getting the touchdowns. I've been saying this all offseason. If you added 4 to 5 touchdowns to that man's year, he'd be being drafted in the second round. He had a great year last year, just wasn't able to get the touchdowns. So people are kind of fading him because they think, oh, he had a bad year, when that just wasn't the case. He just didn't have a good year because of touchdowns.
Would you rather have Miles Sanders or someone like Travis Etienne?
If it's PPR, I would say Etienne. I'm pretty high on Etienne this year. I don't think James Robinson comes back. And when he does come back, I don't think he's going to be ready. I think in 2 years after, the Achilles is fully healed, I think James Robinson could be good again. But I think this year might be mostly Etienne, especially on the passing down. Jaguars are probably going to be behind a lot, so it's going to see a lot of Etienne, maybe working in the slot, definitely out of the backfield, passing down. PPR, I would take Etienne. Regular, I would take Sanders.
I think I'd much rather have Etienne in both formats. In both. I'm not a very big believer in him, in Miles Sanders. I think you've known that for a while.
Yeah.
I'm just not very high on him. It's just everyone's drinking the Miles Sanders Kool-Aid a few times now, and I'm not willing to get this lethal dose the third time around. So you can take that dose. No, thank you.
So I'm looking at his game logs right now, and through the first 7 weeks, they were awful, but that's when they were trying to pass the ball. And we already know that mobile quarterbacks don't pass the ball to running backs. That just doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
In weeks 11 through 15, weeks 13, he was 15th overall. Week 15, he was the 8th overall. He had a bye week 14. And then 11 and 12, he was 26 and 32 But if you would have added a touchdown in those games, he would have been right back up there into running back 2 status.
Just imagine what he would do with a Tom Brady.
Right, that's my thing.
Better.
Like, and everyone's projecting this offense to be better this year, right? Because we got A.J. Brown. Teams aren't going to be able to stack the box as much. They're going to have to, account for A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Like, that's what they wanted. Dallas Goedert coming out of the tight end position should open up more for Miles Sanders. So I don't think it'll be pretty, but I think he will finish as at least an RB2 in this year. I think ETN has more upside.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do with the preseason carries in the first quarter of these games. I think that's going to be very telling to see whether we see the committee or not. If you're drafting, I would say later in preseason, and you see Kenneth Gainwell's getting some work, I think he's going to be worth a late round flyer because they drafted him with some pretty good volume, I would think, in the draft. High upside player, and I think he's immensely talented, and some of our other guys are high on him too. I think he's worth that last round flyer if, say, Miles Sanders just doesn't perform well, or if he goes down. I really like him as a player.
Yeah, no, he's definitely worth a late round flyer.
Okay, and last question I got for you. Is Dallas Goedert going to finally outperform his former teammate Zach Ertz in fantasy football this offseason?
I don't think so.
Upcoming season, not offseason. I keep saying offseason.
No, I knew what you meant. I don't think he does. I think, with D-Hop being suspended for the first 6 games, Zach Ertz is going to have really good games those first 6 games at least. And probably more. Where I don't think the passing volume in Philadelphia is going to be enough. Between A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, like, you're not going to – I think the Goedert is going to go down. Like, I don't think – he's going to be what people want him to be.
And I think his numbers, just like Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown being there, come down because there's one more weapon in a small pie here too. I would much rather have Zach Ertz in a much more prominent offense. And I think with that, I agree with your opinion, and we have reached the end of the NFC East video. So, guys, feel free to tune in tomorrow night. We have a big special guest coming on. It is Ryan from Jets Talk 24/7. We are going to plaster this everywhere. It's going to be very exciting. We are very excited to have him on this show. Make sure, if you are listening to us in audio formats, you can find us on Spotify, Google, Apple, Iheartradio, Pandora. You can also talk to us on Instagram if you got questions for Ryan at Garbage Time Fantasy Football, or on Twitter at garbage_time_FF. Ron, anything you'd like to say to the heckling fandom before we get out of here tonight?
No, just make sure you're smashing those like buttons and that subscribe button, man.
Yeah, and make sure to join the heckling fandom, guys. You can join us at www.garbagetimeff.com, where you can also leave us voicemails and hate mails. With that, guys,
do all your reviews over there too. If you don't want to have to go to the other ones, just go there, throw a review.
All right, see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night.